Monday. Welcome to another Hangout and Hobby with the Art of War and Mohawk Miniatures. Happy Monday, everyone. How you doing, Jay?
Doing well, dude. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. It's another Monday here, which means that today is the day where we go live and Jay tries his absolute best, and it's pretty good actually, to teach me how to paint. So hang out with us, watch this video, get active in the chat, and we're going to be just learning a little bit more about high-level painting. Jay is a saint for teaching me. He's a patient saint, clearly. And yeah, we're going to keep working on the longest intercessor it's ever taken me to paint. But by the end of it, by golly, is he going to be good. So
if you put this intercessor next to one that you did like a while before the lessons, I imagine there's a fairly stark difference between the two.
There is.
Yeah.
It's very noticeable.
Yeah.
So
see, it's okay. It's worth
it's
it.
working.
It's worth putting the time in.
Oh, it absolutely is. So
and you've learned new techniques as well. Non-metallic metal. We've done a couple of bits of that. We're gonna do some more of that today. This time it's silver, not gold. Hazard stripes, little bits of like light freehand like that. Wet blending.
yeah.
Which was your very brave first lesson. Let's do wet blending.
The wet blending was important. I've already been using that one on my other armies. So if you're watching this and you want to get more Art of War content, make sure you like this video, share with your friends, subscribe, and you can even get access to the Worm with a free 3-day trial in the description below. As well, if you want some more painting and hobby content, make sure you check out Jay's channel on YouTube and Twitch. It's Mohawk Miniatures.
That's it. Yeah, it's good. We've got a big weekend coming up as well, so you want to tune in this weekend if you can.
Is this Thunderhawk
I've just
weekend?
Finished tallying up everything that we're giving away this weekend, and it comes to just under £15,000 worth of hobby stuff, which is a surprise. I didn't think it was that much, but it's that much. So yeah, gonna be fun. Tune in for sure.
It is a
okay, my dude,
amount of
let's
Space
get to it.
Marines.
We've got a few things we want to look at today. The first one we're going to do is going to finish off the weapons. Now, we've done a little bit of work on the sword. We've got some nice little gradient highlights, moving from dark grey to a lighter grey at the top. Just need some edge highlights on that. Same for the gun. And then we're going to look at some non-metallic metal. We've got lots of bits on the gun that would traditionally be painted silver, as well as on our chainsaw, like engine and things like that. On the Marine, there's these two bits each side of the backpack to do as well. So plenty to do with the NMM style. So, as with last week, let's get a palette ready, get some black, some grey, some white on there, and we can start working in all of the highlights on these bits. For the chainsword, we want to keep our highlights reasonably large. So you get some edge highlights that come up the back edge of the blade here, help define the surface around the corner. For the gun, we've already done a highlight, as you can just about see on camera. It's quite faint, that's the point. We're going to do another highlight that's still a darkish grey but lighter than this, and then we're going to go to almost white for our final highlights. And those final highlights are going to keep really, really small. What that's going to do for us is give us something that looks reasonably matte but has like a small satin sheen to it, but something that looks very gloss here, and that's to do with the size of the highlights and placement of them. So let's do it.
All right, I like it. I'm excited for this. I'll freely admit the dirty secret of most of my armies is that I paint all of my guns with contrast paint. Because it's just such a nice.
Nothing wrong with that.
It looks good. Because honestly, both the GW Black Templar and the Army Painter Speed Paint Blacks are really good looking. So that and flesh is where I just do a speed paint or contrast, and I work with it from there.
Okay.
But I do want to learn some alternatives for when I'm doing like character models.
So what I tend to do with my guns is basically the same thing. I start off with either a contrast paint or just some slightly thin regular paint. And then once I've got a coat of that on there, I airbrush over it. So even though you've done the rest of the model, most of the airbrush overspray comes when you try and get to the edges. But if instead of painting, like let's grab some with a gun across his chest. Oh, he'll do. He's got a sword across his chest. Okay. If instead of painting this with a brush, we did a base coat with an airbrush, because we've already got red right to the very edge. We don't have to bring the airbrush up here and risk a load of overspray going down there. So we can then just airbrush these bits and tidy it all up. So I found that's one of the quickest ways for painting like intercessors. We got guns held both hands across their chest. It's just careful with an airbrush, and it's so much quicker than brush blending everything. You still get a really good result.
No, that's interesting.
So let's get some highlights on the chainsword.
All right, let's do it.
Here we go. What's the purpose of a highlight? It does two things.
I imagine that the first thing it does is show the viewer where there's a change in either angle or material, or basically just shows that there is a change in something to draw a little bit of attention there. And I would guess the second part of a highlight is to, I guess it'd be to kind of show where light catches.
Yes. Where would light normally catch something?
With a normal sun overhead, I would guess it would be towards the top.
Yeah, you'd normally get highlights towards the top of things, but also anything that's metallic or has a reflective coating, the edges start to become a little bit more illuminated as well. And by highlighting those edges, it gives us what we're really looking for there is definition. So it's going to give us a little bit of definition towards the back of the blade and a little bit more towards the front. Now remember, we're going to paint these teeth in non-metallic silver, so we do need to make sure that we don't go too bright on the front, because when we paint the teeth, which will be reasonably bright, it will start to meld together. So make sure your highlights here stay around that kind of mid-tone gray and don't really get further past that.
Okay.
Keep them nice and sharp and help do the edge, but don't draw a box all around the chainsaw. That just looks weird.
It does.
I've never understood.
I have a lot of boxes drawn around chainswords in my collection.
I'll bet you do. You and anyone else that's ever seen GW box art has got boxes drawn around stuff. The thing is, when the heavy metal style was created many, many years ago, they kind of needed to do it because they needed to show that their models had better detail than almost any other model that you could find on the marketplace at all. Now, they don't need to do that. That time has come and gone, frankly. Okay. But it's still their iconic style. And the one thing I will say about it is, as someone that's worked in GW, it's very easy to teach somebody heavy metal style of painting. You don't have to worry about things like volumetric highlights and gradients across a plane and things. You just draw boxes.
Easy. I can do that. Learned that in elementary school. Alrighty, so let's just get a nice gray highlight. Again, it feels weird that I'm doing this with one of my largest brushes. It's just this is one of the things that I keep talking about that happened since I started talking to you, is that I don't just grab the smallest brush possible for anything that's fine detail anymore, because I am indeed just using the tip of it.
Exactly. You're not trying to paint a wall, and certainly for a lot of applications of paint, you can use a brush with a large belly. That's the bit between the tip and the ferrule being the metal bit, because it will hold more paint and you can do more quicker because there's still plenty of paint on the brush. Just don't fall into the trap, which is quite an easy trap to fall into, of not washing your brush often enough. So just use a little paint on the brush and regular trips to your clean water and so on.
Yep, I've even got the clean water ready. Look at that. All right. All right. So while we're doing this, Jay, have you been keeping up with all the different 10th edition articles that they've been posting? Is that something you've been keeping an eye on?
I have indeed. It's obviously something we get asked about a lot on stream.
Obviously.
The last one I saw was the vehicle change. Toughness tests for vehicles. I don't know if there's been one since then. I've been busy today.
I think they did one on Friday that was about weapon stats changing.
Oh, that was it. Yes, I saw that. Yes, I did see that because there was a load of people in my chat complaining about how vehicles got tougher, but their melter gun stayed the same strength.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well.
Well, if they'd changed the toughness,
way to go to complain about something in a vacuum, but sure.
Yeah. Well, if they had changed the toughness of vehicles and then brought melter guns to strength 14, I feel like they wouldn't have bothered changing the numbers. I feel like it wouldn't have actually changed anything.
Yeah, I know, right? I think it's totally fine that a melter gun still might need a 5 to wound a rhino.
Yeah, considering the rhino probably doesn't get a save, because I'm assuming AP functions the same, and they've shown us that a Rhino's a 3-up save and a Meltagun's AP4. So I'm just going to assume that that part's the same. And if a Rhino doesn't get a save, that's still going to hurt. It's still going to hurt a lot.
Hurt substantially, yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll just get away from that point where we just can be like, yeah, mathematically you are dead 75 times over. I no longer need to think about what will happen if this doesn't work, because it just is going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting how they said that there's going to be a lot of weapons with like super high strength, because it just adds a bit more room for granularity. Like if you keep everything kind of condensed together, that's one of the issues we have with D6 isn't it? Is if your ballistic skill is 2+, then you only miss 1/6 of the time. If your skill is 3+, you're a Space Marine, you miss like 1/3 of the time. If your skill is 4+, that's most of 40k at some point. Like there aren't many units with a worse ballistic skill than that other than orcs. And so suddenly everything feels exactly the same as an extremely well-trained Imperial Guardsman or TIE Fire Warrior or whatever else, and you get that feeling of everything is kind of the same.
Yeah, because like you don't want a Stormtrooper to hit on the same ballistic skill as a Guardsman, otherwise why is he a Stormtrooper?
Exactly, right? So you have that, and then you get everyone having a similar stat line. So Space Marine is only just slightly tougher than most other things, and most other things can't be much tougher than the Space Marine, otherwise they become as tough as like Death Guard. So Space Marines share toughness with quite a lot of things in the game. T4 is reasonably common. I like the fact they're going to stretch things out, especially for vehicles, which should feel much more varied than they do. And weapons that are anti-tank should feel much more anti-tank. So yeah, all in, I'm optimistic about most things, but this specifically.
Yeah, this is also one that I'm pretty excited about. I just want vehicles to feel a little more durable, and one of the things that I hate is them.
Yes, anything above damage 1 becomes an anti-tank weapon. Well, regardless of what you're wounding on.
I mean,
as long as it's not 6s.
Even then, like my Gladiator Reapers are actually just an anti-tank unit. Like it's just it's 40.
One with the chain cannons, right?
Yeah, it's 44 shots.
Yeah.
And like once you get it hitting on 2s, you're rolling 1s. It's like, well, statistically, I'm gonna hit your vehicle like 43 times. Yeah, I'm wounding on 5s, but this is still most of a Rhino.
That's still close to 15.
Yeah. Like, and at AP2, it's like, oh, that's actually like could kill a Rhino in one go.
Yeah.
And that's a little silly.
I've played a lot of Knights into Drukhari with disintegrators back when they were good. So that would be 8th. And just the chip damage is where I learned that Knights really start to suffer. It's almost never the big guns that take you out. Yep. It happens, but it's very much rarer than the little guns just all gang up on you. And there's a lot more armies out there with little guns doing the job than the super huge guns. Like Hammerheads are still scary AF, and a Borkan Sternal Surge can just get in the sea as far as I'm concerned. But there's a lot less armies with those things than the big, the slightly medium-sized guns, we'll say.
Yep. Fair.
What I will say, though, is it looks like the assault cannon's going to become a really, really good anti-tank weapon. Yeah,
because it's just going to have like a couple random mortals in it. But it's not going to be a reliable anti-tank weapon, at least. So that part
exactly.
I like. We've already got a couple people in the chat. Muzzbuzz is complimentary of the blue that Jay is working on, and it is indeed beautiful.
It's a nice blue.
It's a very nice blue.
The secret to it is honestly these blues from P3. It's isn't really a secret, I guess. This is just the way it is. You need to have paints to get colors like this that are really, really high pigment strength. Things like contrast paint actually are brilliant. If you can't get P3 paints, contrast paints are good, because you start off with something that's reasonably desaturated. You need to get contrast paint, thin it down with water, and glaze it over the surface. And what happens there is that because the contrast paint has got such this really, really strong pigment, it can add a lot to the vibrancy of your mini. So you don't necessarily need to find this one line of paint. You just need to adapt some of the paints that you might be able to get easier to get the job done for you. But P3 is, that's my go-to. I always tell people, like, people constantly ask me, Like, if I'm going to buy a line of paint, which one should I buy? I always tell them not to buy an entire line of paints, because there's going to be some companies that have got a really, really good red, for instance, but their blue is terrible. And another company has got a fantastic purple, but their red is awful. And so on and so on and so on throughout the spectrum. So I've got paints from normally something like 8 or 9 different suppliers next to me. But if I had to just choose one line of paint, it would probably be P3. That's my usual go-to for things.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, with those colors you're putting down, it's easy to see why. For those of you watching in the chat, if you are watching from work, if you're hobbying along, let us know what you're doing. Always curious what people get up to when they're watching and hanging out with us.
Apparently, they've just dropped the new Terminator Librarian. Let's see if that's over on Warcom.
On Warcom?
I don't know. Cool.
I wonder if they are showing any rules for him or if it's just a model, but... Well, he was in the trailer, so it's not surprising.
I can't see anything, to be fair. I've got some Sigma things.
I just found it. It looks like they're doing their normal Warhammer thing, where they post it on their Facebook feed before it's on their website. Which is always a little bit weird.
And that's why I can never find it. If you'll say it's out, I'm like, well, it's not here.
Yeah, no, it's I could not explain why. Let's copy the link. I'll put it in the chat. Boop boop. Oh wow, nope, that is way too many characters. Never mind.
Brilliant.
John Shave's in here with some jokes. He's teaching you to paint, but is he teaching you to reattach broken Blackstone Eldar Ranger sniper rifle barrels? I also have a plastic Ranger with a broken sniper rifle, so like I can.
Do you?
I think everyone does.
Bro, that cuts me so deep as well. Like, one of my earliest streams, I was doing Blackstone Fortress for a client, and I was painting most of the player characters at once, sort of doing bits on each of them as I got to the right colors I was using to be efficient. And the Eldar Ranger sniper rifle, I literally barely grazed it with my fingertip. It just touched it, and the thing snapped in half. I'm like, what? Oh no! And I had to find a way of pinning that back together.
It wasn't a unique experience to you. I think all of them do that. Mine's broken. Because I love all of them in like the fun mini games that they've put out. Like I have most of the Blackstone Fortress expansions. I've played the game a couple times. Nice. It's fun, but I mostly just like having the models. One of these days I'm gonna paint up the Zote just to have it.
The Zote's the only expansion I've not painted.
Yeah.
I've done all the rest. I've never got to the Zote.
It's just so beautiful.
But John, is that you, my client, John? Because that was a John as well.
All right, let's see.
Oh dear, that'd be hilarious if it was.
Yeah. So working my way onto a slightly lighter gray here, which I'll of course be keeping away from. I'll probably put just the tiniest amount on the bottom of the chainsword, but probably will stop there.
Yeah, I've done a little bit on the sort of hilt, the handle. This bit just down here by the engine, and I'm going to go ever so slightly lighter with a couple of those highlights, but I'm going to keep those really at the top ends of things. So like we said earlier on, highlights help to show the effect of light, which normally happens towards the top of elements. Light comes normally from above. The closer you are to a light source, the brighter it is. Even on something this scale, where, let's be fair, the sun is maybe 5 million miles away from this actual dude, but 5.111 whatever million miles away from his foot, there's still going to be a difference. So still make these bits a little brighter. So I'm just adding a very small amount of white into some of that mid-tone grey. And for anyone that's doing any kind of volumetric work, so not just like drawing boxes around stuff, but where you're creating gradients across the surface, I'd strongly recommend you start mixing paints. I know a lot of people have an aversion to it, and they'll just buy like X number of pots of paint and in brighter colors and so on. And that could be a useful thing, don't get me wrong. But then they get stuck into this trap of, well, I just open this pot and I do these few bits of paint, I put that pot of paint away, and then I grab another one, and then here we go, next one. But yeah, just mix things.
Alrighty. Doop, doop.
Save you money in the long run.
I believe that. I fully believe that. And I have a lot of different colors of paint, but learning to mix. I think the biggest thing though is that because I really like try to get the consistency the same across models. I think if I'm mixing paints, I just need to write down what I do, otherwise I'll forget. Because the problem is I always jump between. Yeah, you know, like
exactly
the whole book.
that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The problem is that I jump between projects, so it'll be like, oh, let me go add like a Desolator unit to my Space Marines. Well, I haven't painted a Space Marine in 2 months. And, you know, in 2 months, I'm going to learn that I need to paint, 30 Rough Riders or something. And I'm going to be like, I haven't painted a Guardsman in a while. Like, I know I used, like, mostly this, but, like, I don't want to get one color off and have it look slightly different.
Mm-hmm. So I used to have a book. I wrote everything down in.
Mm-hmm.
And I changed to keeping a Google Drive set of files for it. So the files are named like for what it is, like Space Marines, and then maybe the Blood Angels. So Space Marines, Blood Angels, and then the client specifically that I did those for. So I could go into those and go, right, how do I paint his stuff exactly like this? Cool, that's what I've got to follow for the next time around. And you sort of move on from there.
Very nice. Yeah, I currently have a notes set up in my iPhone, where I've just got one tab for every army that I've painted in the last couple months.
Do you put pictures in there as well?
I don't. I just have the paints listed by color and then like kind of what technique I used.
Worth putting in a quick picture of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That was one thing I found is that whilst I had the knowledge of like here's the paints that I used, and I could remember roughly the order of them because you obviously use normally dark to light.
Mm-hmm.
Having the picture in there is like, right, that's exactly the red I need. So I can say to my next client, like, I paint these Blood Angels this way. Do you want them like this, or do you want them like this? Is a different red, and so on. Mm-hmm. But it was also a better reminder for me for exactly what the final effect was going to look like as well. So useful bit of work there for anyone in chat that has many armies.
Yep.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Let's have a go at sorting the gun out. So now we're going to work into some really bright highlights. So I just put a little bit of a highlight up here. It's a lighter grey.
Okay.
But we're going to go even brighter here. But we're going to keep these super, super small. You know when something's reflective, you tend to get these really small, bright highlight points. And the overall effect that we're going for with this gun is that kind of well-oiled, well-kept, tactical weapon. So it needs to have that little gloss finish to it.
Gotcha,
so again, I'm just going to take a little bit of grey. I'm going to take probably an equal amount of grey and white for a really bright grey.
Just get some very small highlights on there.
Yeah. So these are called specular highlights. Anything that's a little dot rather than a line, specular highlight. Charles says, looking forward to hiding behind a wall, getting leaf blowed off the table for some bits he's doing for Noise Marines. Should be a fun event, though. Have fun with that.
All right.
We were talking about terrain just before the stream, actually.
Yeah, we were talking about Warhammer Fest. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be making Warhammer Fest this time around, but hopefully I'll be kind of turning that investment into a London trip later on in the year. Yep. Oh, and looks like it's up on Warhammer Community. So if you want to check out the Terminator, because honestly, the Terminator model is kind of sweet. He's a lot more arcane looking than the normal old librarians, in my opinion.
Oh, he looks all right.
Yeah, it looks fun to paint.
Increase your army shushing power. Brilliant. I cast the mighty
Zip it.
Zip it. Brilliant.
There we go.
He looks nails.
Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah, just the model.
I still don't understand the bright yellow tubing they put on all of these things. I don't get that at all.
I don't really either. Not gonna lie to you. But
yes,
I don't know, yellow's
great.
Yeah, yellow's a good color with blue though, so I don't mind that. But I don't understand why the tubes are bright yellow. But yeah, they do it on every librarian. There's like these ones are bright yellow tubes. Because like clearly some surf was like, yo, we could use the gray tubes or the yellow tubes. What do you want? It's like, bright yellow. That's what he's in the mood for today.
I reckon it was more that the Tech Marine was sat there like looking at the stocks of stuff they've got, and maybe that particular tech room was a little anti-psycho. Like,
Yeah.
listen, give these guys the yellow ones. They'll stand out on the battlefield. Someone's going to take the shot.
Here we go.
But he looks absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Big fan of the sculpted bits of detail in the armor. That's cool.
Yeah, that's
the
what I
axe
really
is
like.
ace.
Yeah, the axe is awesome, and I love all of the different like inlays. Those look like they'd be really fun to paint.
They've also stayed away from the shower cap like it could as well, which I thank the lords for that.
I am happy for that. I am slightly disappointed he's not wearing it just I don't know, a helmet. But maybe there's an option in the kit.
Yeah, almost every librarian I've ever painted for myself has had a helmet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's the opportunity to do the cool glowing eyes that this guy has, but I feel like I would be just fine just giving him a helmet.
But glowing eye lenses is easy to do as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then that's like every Space Marine. Like every Space Marine gets glowing eye lenses. So you just gotta his hand's glowing, so that's how you show that he's magic. I don't know, that's a really sweet model. I'm excited for that. I'm also good.
I love the fact he's got a proper like Nemesis Stormbolter looking thing as well. So definitely one of your Grey Knights.
Yeah,
you can be upgraded to him.
Yeah, you could easily use this guy in a Grey Knight's army. Oh man, I wonder if they're gonna redo the Grey Knight Terminator kit at some point. Because
we talk about this on stream a lot on my channel. Grey Knights have got 3 kits, and Crow. Yep. That's it. You have your Power Armor boy, your Terminator boy, your character, and your baby carrier.
Yeah, I mean, there's such good kits, but because they have to be so versatile. Yeah, I mean, I remember when they were released in 5th edition.
I was out of the game in 5th edition, unfortunately, so I don't. But I think if they went the Custodes way with those, it'd be brilliant. So stick to that many kits, but like in Custodes, here's your Terminator guys. You can have your Shield Captain, you can have your Banner Man, you can have your regular boys off your trot. Do the same thing for Grey Knights, but just make the kits scale appropriate. So make the Terminators Terminator sized rather than small, and make maybe one of them an easy fit into Kael Drago, or just make him a new plastic model, because he is about the height of a mini Marine, to be honest.
He is tiny.
He is a small boy with usually a banana sword. That I've literally seen one of those come out of the packet straight.
I haven't.
Go fine cast. But yeah, if they just did, here's a Terminator kit, here's a Power Armor kit. This does all your special weapons, all your close combat weapons, your jumpy boys. Terminator does your paladins, your normal stuff, your banners, everything like that. New baby carrier kit. Done. Complete range refresh in 3 boxes.
Yeah, they could really do it. I'd love to see it. Although, I still have nightmares about the first time those models were released, because that Grey Knights army on release was wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
So Grey Knights are what we use to describe how Knight is balanced, basically. Yeah, seriously. Well, it's because back then force weapons caused instant death. Yeah. And this book came out like one release after the Tyranid Codex that took Eternal Warrior away from everything. And so it was very simple. If the Grey Knight player got 1/6 to wound in combat, your monster died. And with force weapons as well, it was the unit cast a psychic spell to activate force weapons.
Yeah, exactly.
So back then, like I said, I wasn't playing, but in 7th, where the rules for force weapons were basically the same, my Librarius Conclave, if my main dude was invisible, okay, great. In that case, force weapons ahoy. Excellent, you're all dead.
Yeah, this is right after they released all those really nice, back then, like an unheard of 6 wounds on a Tervagon and a Tyrannifex. And it's like, 6 wounds on this monster, and it's T6. How do you deal with that? And then like the next book was
to strength 3 way.
Yeah. Well, only if I passed Iron Arm. You had to get to T7 to be immune to strength 3.
That was it.
But then they're like, the next book was Grey Knights, and they're like, oh, if it wounds you, you die.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, sweet, my army's back to 1 wound. Fantastic. It was a different time.
It's a very different time.
Yeah, I think that
Dark days of 40k.
Very dark, but the changes from 9th to 10th, even though they're doing the index reset, they don't look as pronounced as the changes from 7th to 8th, which I think is a very good thing. I am in no way complaining about that. I think that's wonderful.
Absolutely the same. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think, like, genuinely, and I mean this, 9th is the most balanced edition of 40k I think there's ever been.
Yeah.
Sure, there have been outliers throughout 9th. Necrons, Nids, Admech, Drukhari,
Harlequins.
They've been the really like heavy offenders, but even they haven't been, well, apart from Admech, which are relegated to the history books now. They haven't been super obnoxious for an entire edition, whereas back in 5th, where the game was not FAQ'd ever, Granite Book came out, that's it, for 3 years, they're going to win everything. Done.
Yeah, remember the first time they introduced a destroyer weapon outside of Apocalypse, and it was just on, like, Eldar 7 different units?
Yeah, it was, they just gave D weapons, destroyer, yeah.
And then that was just a thing that we had for the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, for the next 3 years, Eldar can kill any model on the table. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, there we go. We've got some nice bright highlights on the gun.
Very nice, very nice. I've got some in mine as well.
Excellent. Should give you a fairly glossy look to it. And that's achieved by the fact we've got massive contrast, but the highlights are kept really, really small. If you want to go a little bit brighter, you can do, but be very, very careful adding in just a tiny dot of white. Nothing else.
That's actually what I'm doing at this exact moment, is adding the tiniest possible dot of white.
And then we'll start some non-metallic silver.
Ooh.
That'll be good.
This I'm excited for.
So question from John in the chat. Do you think transport capacity will stay the same of our vehicles? If we're now including characters into units, the units will be larger than before.
I would expect it to be similar. I would imagine a couple units get, like, moved around a little bit, but like a Drukhari Raider holds 11, that's probably staying. I wouldn't be surprised if they took maybe they take a Rhino from 10 to 11.
They could do.
Yeah, something like that wouldn't surprise me, but I imagine that in general they're staying the same. And then they'll probably completely change the transport capacity of a Land Raider and none of us will notice. Stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's plenty of things that they could do with that. They could just make a character that joins a unit, not count towards transport capacity.
Oh yeah, honestly, that could also work. Yeah, they've got options. I imagine that they won't make it so that once a character joins a unit, transports are out the window. Yeah, one way or another.
Especially because characters at that point are functionally more vulnerable than they are now.
Exactly, yeah, because if you just kill one unit and then you get to shoot the character, that's a little...
Yeah, exactly. Rather than I've got to kill my way through your entire army, including that unit that's behind a wall over there protecting that one guy. Like, don't have to do that anymore. Just kill that one, mortal wound, overkill through it, and so on. Like,
I am really curious how they're going to do it. Honestly, if I were wish listing here, and let me be extremely clear that despite common opinion, I am not a playtester, and I have no idea what's coming. I would actually love it if Primaris Lieutenants went down to, like, 4 wounds and were a little cheaper.
Specifically Primaris Lieutenants.
Yeah, well, like, I mean, but, like, in general, like, I'd like it if a bunch of, like, unnamed characters just became, like, because, like, a Primaris Lieutenant is, like, 2.5 Intercessors stapled together.
Yeah.
And, like, honestly, I wouldn't mind if a Primaris Lieutenant was, like, 3 wounds and like 40 points. Fair. Just like tone characters.
Rerolling ones to hit for a unit is very different from rerolling ones to hit as an aura.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I could see that.
Yeah, and I don't know how exactly each character's rules will impact the unit, and some would obviously have to be priced appropriately. But, like, I'd be okay if just everything that was an aura became a this unit, and then the guy just became a little smaller in every dimension. Like, rules-wise. Yeah, and make Eldar characters 1 wound. I agree.
Yes. Exactly. 1, 2 to 0 wounds anywhere in that bracket. I think.
Well,
is a
they
good,
can start
good
at
place
1,
for them
and
to
I'll
be.
take them to 0 at speed.
They start on 1. They lose a wound each turn. Player turn.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think that's good. Right.
All
Are
right.
you ready to
Metallic
do
silver.
some silver, good man?
I am. I'm ready and
Excellent.
excited.
So I've got my Mechanica Standard Grey from GDubs.
Okay.
I'm going to base coat everything we want silver with this, and make sure you've got a good base coat. So if it takes 2 coats, it takes 2 coats. Again, just like the blue, this is the foundation of everything we're going to do. If this isn't right, nothing else will be right past it.
Understood. No pressure. That's all right. I've got a good gray here.
This is just a good mid-tone grey. It's good for pretty much anything because you can use it as a base coat, you can use it as a highlight, you can use it as a shadow for a light grey. It's a really, really good value, essentially. So value is its brightness.
Yep. All right, let's find some silver. Got the nice barrel of this plasma pistol.
Let's see. The Rhino looks like it can barely fit 3 normal-sized Marines in it. So the idea of 11 Primaris Marines packing into the back of one makes me chuckle. It does look like it's a tight fit.
It really does, yeah.
But it was made when Mini Marines were big, to be honest. So
yeah. It's really hard, like, because, like, you know, occasionally you get players that rock up to a tournament still with their all old style Marines, but a lot of new players have to be like, yeah, like, just to be clear, the Carnifex used to be the biggest plastic kit in the game. Like, the Carnifex, when I bought my first Carnifex, was the largest monster in the game.
Largest plastic monster, yes.
It was the largest monster. It wasn't obviously the Land Raider was bigger, but
yeah,
but it was bigger. Like the biggest monsters in the game at that point were the old Avatar, the old Wraith Lord, the Metal Hive Tyrant. Like,
yeah, Metal Hive Tyrant was pretty beastie.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some reasonably chunky things like the Screamer Killer Carnifex. It's about the size of a baseball.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about the size of a baseball now. And like now when you look at it, you're like, oh man, this thing is like roughly can like make eye contact with Pharaoh's Ironfather.
Yeah, he's a little stooped, isn't he?
Yeah, he's
getting old, but he is like in Carnifex years, 20 human years could be easily like dog years or cat years to a Carnifex. So he's had a good run.
He's had a good run. Yeah.
Question from the chat about how I get GW paints and dropper bottles. Basically, GW loves me, so they send me some dropper bottle ones. That's it. I'm the only person that gets these. No one else.
Yeah, it's incredible. He will sell them to you for a mint. It's quite a premium.
When we say a mint, I immediately went to like a polo.
Yeah.
Okay. But no, honestly, it's super simple. You just take a dropper bottle and you take some GW paint, and then you need to thin it down a little bit to help move it across. And this is one thing that I find helps my painting in general. Is I mix Vallejo airbrush thinner and airbrush flow improvement equal quantities into the paint before I transfer it into the dropper bottle. And one of the things that does is it gets all of the paints that I use to a similar consistency across the board. So you know how sometimes you'll get paints that are really thick and paints that are really thin? Well, all of mine are close to the same level, which means it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I know that I can just add equal amounts of flow improvement paint to airbrush it, or I can add with my brush a little bit of water and I can use it straight away. So it speeds up my painting because it homogenizes all of that. I've done a video on how to transfer paints to dropper bottles. It's on my YouTube channel. Mohawk Miniatures, just search dropper and it'll pop in. But honestly, you've got to tailor it to every paint. Some are thick, some are thin, so you do less to more of the thinner and flow improver. And the reason you put in both is very important. The thinner, because it's slightly alcohol based, will help to dry out things quicker. The flow improver is designed specifically to slow down the drying process of things, so that makes it like counteracts the thinner. And you think, well, why don't you just use water? And it's because they're both thicker than water, so it doesn't over thin your paint. It just gets it to that Goldilocks just right zone.
That's really cool. I will Honestly, I will probably be watching that video myself because I do lament that occasionally a paint is just coming out thick of a bottle.
Yeah. As well, for someone like me that airbrushes a lot, you tend to invert the bottle, and it's just drop, 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 and done, rather than like ladling things out into the airbrush cup with your brush, trying to hope that you've got a roughly the right mix. So for me, it speeds everything up. It makes my life easier when it comes to replicating a mix. So going back to the recipes that we were talking about earlier on, all of that is just, well, I know this is 3 drops this, 2 drops that, and away we go.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of value to consistency there. All right. Mostly done with this gray undercoat, which is getting a little more gray on, and then I'll go check back and see if any parts of it need to get a second coat. There we go. Got the backpack. Got the barrel of that gun.
I still just need to do the backpack and the teeth on a chainsaw blade.
Yep, I need to do the teeth as well. But there we go. All right.
So, with the gold NMM, we started with the easiest piece and then moved on from there. We're going to do exactly the same thing here. Out of the elements that you've already base coated, thinking about the way the gold worked, what do you think the easiest part of the model is to work on?
I'm honestly going to guess. I feel like it's the backpack.
That's one of them. Yeah, that's definitely one of two, because you've got 2 small square-shaped things each side. Essentially, that and the chainsaw teeth are the easiest ones because they're super small. They've got really, really defined edges. They've got quite obvious, blatant shadows, and they're not smooth surfaces at all. It's just some rigid edges.
Yeah, I went with the backpack over the chainsaw teeth because I was thinking of the shadows of the vent, whereas the teeth are just a series of small flat surfaces. But I guess they've got shadows right up against the edge, so there's plenty to work with there. Okay, I think that's me with all of my grays.
Cool. I'll be 2 minutes.
No problem. Honestly, I'm going to go put a second coat on the motor of the chainsword. Is this the end, like the engine, the motor? Like, I've never actually figured out what the big.
I think so.
I think it's the engine block or something. I guess
That's
similar
what makes
to
sense to me. Is that?
Yeah, kind of similar to the like I guess like the block of like a lawn trimmer.
Yeah.
Like a chainsaw.
Or chainsaw.
Yeah. I always think of hedge trimmers.
Really?
Which is I really do. It's because I've used a hedge
marine horticulturists.
Yeah, it's because I personally have used hedge trimmers much more often than chainsaws.
Okay.
I have never I've never been in a position where I needed to use a chainsaw. Tyranids never chose my hive, so why would I need one? I assume that they just all went to Australia.
And firewood was an actual thing back then. So, hence chainsaw.
Yeah, I lived in Florida, where it didn't really matter what part of the state you were in. You didn't need firewood.
Heating kind of optional.
Oh, the heating was not optional. We were subjected to it.
Yes. Yours came from an external source rather than an internal source. So. Whereas I lived in a place, about 7 years ago, that had heaters. They weren't particularly good. The walls were made of Cotswold stone, a foot thick. So you could drive a tank into that house, and the tank would come off worse, I swear. But the windows were all single glazed, which meant you just got draft through the window all the time. So in winter, you had to light a fire, and that was what gave you most of the warmth for winter. And you try and keep that on all day long and keep it going. Yep. Yeah. But very, very different from living in Florida.
Yeah, just, theoretically.
Yeah. Okay, so with our gold, we started off with a base coat, dark base coat, and worked up dark to light. Right? Here, we started with something that's much more approaching a mid-tone. We're going to work immediately now from this down to dark, and then we're going to take it back up to light.
Okay.
So, with our black, we're going to add shadow. Obviously, on these, the shadow is very easy to see inside these bits. There'll be shadow. On the underside, there would be shadow.
Yep, that seems
so. Just take your black, get it thin. It doesn't need to be a glaze, but just a nice thin pass of black. and get the insides and the undersides painted.
Alrighty, here we go.
And the reason we're doing it this way around is because I find that with gold, it's to keep the richness, you kind of need to start dark and move up light all over, so universally you can see it lighting up essentially. It's easy to balance. With silver, because it needs to be normally colder in terms of its overall sort of color temperature than gold, sometimes it's easy to start with a bright color because you're doing a lot less work getting everything else to there from, say, black, which is what our shadows now are.
Mm-hmm. Right. Working it underneath.
I like speed paints. They're a drop of bottles and have a mixing ball in them. The mixing ball I hate. Whenever I'm airbrushing, I take my pot of paint, I turn it upside down to drop paint out, and the mixing ball ends up right in the nipple of the bottle essentially. It blocks off the flow of paint. That annoys the crap out of me. So mixing balls come out. They're not my favorite thing.
Oh, man.
I do use them to help get the paint into the dropper bottle, because you want to make sure all the pigment in the pot that you've got it from is very well mixed together.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. All right, and then so I've got it here on the on these vents, and now should I be doing something similar on the chainsword, or wait a little bit?
We can do, yeah. Just for that, literally, just sort of put a line in under each one.
Okay.
And that'll give us enough of a shade there. And we'll do these two bits to begin with, then we'll work up once these are done and we've got a good understanding of the process and the progression of our colors we're going to go through. We'll then work up on the slightly harder to do bits, such as bits of the bowl gum.
Okay, I like it.
Having trouble finding airbrush techniques on YouTube. Most videos are getting started on how to clean. I'm looking for tutorials on blending, etc. Micah McComb, go and check out almost any of my YouTube videos. I love the airbrush. The airbrush is my favorite tool for painting with. I've got loads of videos that are easily adaptable to anything on there. Some notable ones would be Intermediate OSL, which uses a lot of airbrush technique. Various different tutorials on how to paint Space Marines. I've done a speed paint, actually, which is going to be probably one of the most valuable ones to you if you really want to learn technique of airbrushing, where I did an Adeptus Custodes Blade Champion. Mm-hmm. 6 hours, job done. Ooh. And that included cape with white on the inside, red on the outside, gold armor, brown boots and gloves, freehand on the inside of the cape, and a red brick base. 6 hours from primed black to finished, because the airbrush is king.
I am very passionate about the values of airbrushing, because that is the only way that I get armies done these days.
Same for me, dude. Like I've painted 4,100 and something points of Space Marines in 4 weekends and a bit, because the airbrush allows me to do that.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's not only that, like, it makes my painting so much faster, it's that it also looks better. Yes. Honestly, what got me was COVID was what got me into airbrushing, because I got like a nice refund from a tournament.
Okay.
And because Adepticon was like in March, and they refunded their tickets, and so I just like kind of like had that in, and I'm sure you remember at the time we were all thinking like, okay, well maybe by May I'll be going to tournaments. Which was wrong.
Yeah.
Which was incorrect.
Yeah, he'll be over soon. It'll be all right.
Yeah, just like 5 or 6 weeks. But I was like, screw it. If I'm gonna be like inside for a month, maybe I'll just try to like get an airbrush and like see what I can do. And it took a lot longer than that to learn how to airbrush. But baby steps get you everywhere. Eventually.
I painted 3 full armies before I felt confident with the airbrush.
Yeah.
So that was somewhere in the region of 2,500 points of Grey Knights. It was all power armor, so it was easy. 2,500 points of Alpha Legion, which is my own army, in that kind of metallic teal sea green color.
I've always liked that scheme.
And then something like 3,000 points of Blood Angels, I think, with lava bases. That was more airbrush practice on those. Anyway, once you've set your shadows, John, time to start working into some highlights. Now, one of the last things we're going to do is take this blue and we're going to glaze that over the surface before our final highlight goes on. Same way we did with the gold, where we were warming it up with the orange, if you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
So on this, we need to work from the grey that we've got to nearly pure white. If we go to pure white, we've probably got something that's maybe a little bit too bright. Okay. Silver should still be, if you look at the silver ferrule on my brush, even this end right here is not necessarily pure white. If I put that next to it, you see it's still not quite there.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Okay. So it needs to be fairly close to it at the end, but not there. Which means if we work, say, 75% of the way to there, then do a couple of quick glazes of the blue to give us that nice silver or steel tone to something, and then finish off those highlights and tidy it up. That's what we're aiming for. So on your palette, you should have your three colors: your black, your gray, your white. Just take some of the gray from the master pool, mix in a little white at a time, and we can use this to work up through our colors. Because we've got some small areas, we don't need to be super smooth with our gradient, because the size means that the contrast is essentially more important. Your eyes sort of smooth out some of the imperfections a little bit. When we get to doing areas like this, though, we'll need to be more precise, so we may as well start as we need to go on and be a little bit more controlled with it. So let's aim to go from, say, this color to something that's much more approaching this color, so that lighter stage of gray, across 3, maybe 4 highlights. Happy with that?
Let's do it. Yep. 3 to 4 highlights to get to there. Sounds good. We had a question in the chat. Someone asked how long it takes each of us to paint a single guardsman. I'm not going to be proud of this answer. Jay, what's yours?
Okay. Wow, as a past about. Let's say we're doing it to a reasonable quality.
Mm-hmm.
But I was still painting it quickly, right? So we're aiming for speed and quality together, not like Golden Demon quality, and not what's that Space Marine with the eyes that are doing this while he's screaming, that level.
Not embarrassed to put it on the table.
Yeah, including a base. I think I could get one done without counting drying time. So
that's always the question.
5. Mm-hmm. I think I could get 5 done to a quality. I'd be like, yeah, that's all right. Inside 25 minutes each. So, 25, 50, hour and 40 minutes. So 2 hours to do 5, I reckon.
Okay. Yeah, my so I drying time's a thing, and I'm not really sure where I'm at, because the guard army that I have currently painted, I doubt I spent more than a net 15 minutes of guardsmen on. And they don't look good. They're not embarrassing in the literal sense, but they're embarrassing a little bit. However, the guard army that is, I want to say 70 to 80% done. That guard army, I think each guardsman I have put, I would guess, between drying painting and the fact that I've been batch painting them 70 models at a time. Because I just did the entire thing batch painted. I would guess it'd take me about 90 minutes of guardsman, which is insane. But I've also this is not me trying to just get it good. This is me trying to get a guardsman to the literal best of my ability, and that also includes conversion, because every guardsman is converted to at least some extent.
Excellent.
Yeah, because it's a Steel Legion army that I'm making out of the plastic Death Core. So every single model at a minimum has had its helmet shaved and redone, and a lot of the models have been reposed.
Wait, what have you had to do to the helmet?
The helmet, I've shaved the helmet down, because the Death Core helmet comes with that nice ridge, the Mohawk.
Right.
And the Steel Legion do not have a Mohawk. So it's a no-hawk army.
I was waiting for somebody to make that joke in chat, but well done, mate. You got there first.
So every guardsman at a minimum has had his helmet shaved down to fit the the Steel Legion aesthetic because that's what I'm going for.
Nice. I was really hoping that GW were going to re-release the Steel Legion instead of Krieg, just for one reason, to annoy all of the internet nerds that were like, Krieg! Take perverse satisfaction in that, clearly. But also because Steel Legion were my favorite of all of the old ones that came out in metal. I loved them. I thought they were brilliant.
Yeah, I fully agree. When if the plastic Steel Legion kit hadn't come out, or if the plastic Krieg kit hadn't come out, I probably would have gotten on that last chance to buy
the made to order stuff.
Yeah, the made to order Steel Legion, but the scale is what kills me. Just because the plastic guardsman is just so much better proportioned than the old
big
ones.
Time.
So
before they were trying to make them size appropriate to a Marine that was already a little bit too small. So yeah, I fully agree.
Yeah, I have a couple of the Steel Legion models, like the pewter ones, because I actually I needed them for some very specific bits, like my Kasserkin Sergeant. You know the iconic Steel Legion Sergeant that's holding an orc head?
Yes.
I got one of those models specifically to have my Kasserkin Sergeant with the Barbican's key holding an orc head, because I needed him to be I needed him to be noticeably different so that I never pulled him as a casualty on accident.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, so there's a bright green orc head, so now it's like, oh, I will very clearly know not to pull that one model. That's the guy I have to protect.
Nice.
Because obviously, if you lose that guy early, you just face palm your way off the table.
You've definitely done the wrong thing there.
Alrighty, here we go.
That's good though, mate. 90 minutes isn't bad for a single model, especially in an army where you're really doing your best to try hard to get that everything to your best.
Yeah, I definitely could do it faster, but I did a count. The test model that I did had, I think, 26 different paints on it. This was before I decided to try mixing things.
Yeah.
But there was just a lot of different paints and everything, because like the eye lens is like 4 different colors that I don't use anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
And then like the mustard greatcoat is 5 different colors that I don't use on anything else. For some reason, don't know why.
You've done the right thing with batch painting them though. Like batch painting can be a soul destroying experience, and this is coming from someone that basically batch paints everything aside from sometimes even characters.
I honestly want a picture when you have 5 lions on your desk.
Well, the 5 became 2, which became actually currently 0 because no one can get hold of one.
That's painful.
But they are in a queue waiting to be done when we can buy the lion again.
Yeah, I've heard that GW's customer service response is that they will have the lion available to sell soon.
Yes, I have within a couple of weeks, essentially.
Yeah, I have no idea what their concept of soon it actually is, but hopefully a couple of weeks would be nice.
I only guess 3 weeks.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully he comes back up soon, because I have one lion on my paint desk. Funny enough, he's actually what I'm going to be painting when I'm off of this stream. So when we're done here, I'm going to go back to working on the lion.
Which head?
Painting all 4. However, my favorite one is the one where you can see his face, but he's wearing a hood.
Okay. I think I finally decided my favorite one is the helm with the bunny ears.
The helm with the bunny ears is really good, and I'm just planning to because when I built the model, I looked at the different head options, and I kind of realized it would just friction sit in there. So.
Oh really? Not even mags?
No, I didn't even magnetize it.
That's cool.
Yeah, and you could definitely remove it if you wanted to, but it's going to stay in if you're just moving around the table.
Nice. That's kind of the point. So obviously the benefit of magnetizing it is that it makes it stable, but you can still remove it if it's already in that case. Then
yeah, and I think I'll probably end up needing the tiniest amount of blue tack underneath. But frankly, the lion is probably going to be more of a display piece for me, anyways. Because I'm not painting him in my normal Space Marine colors. I'm going to be painting him in my just in Dark Angel colors.
Okay.
Just because, you know what, he's the lion. He deserves it. Because I have 2 Guillimans.
You're doing green or black? Because I know a lot of people decided to paint theirs black
A
because that was
very
his original armor color.
Yeah, so he's going to be a very, very dark green to the point that
Yeah,
I painted him black, and there's just going to be a
cool. Just
little
doing the
bit of
highlights.
green. Yeah, a little bit of green in the highlights and the edges.
Nice.
Yep. Yeah, the helmeted hood
So-
is also good. Honestly, all four of the heads are actually just legitimately great. I don't mind the, I don't want to say the bald head, but the helmetless head. I don't mind the helmetless, hoodless head at all. I know there's a lot of Game of Thrones jokes. I think it looks fine. I think I really like the hooded Dark Angel aspect.
Yeah, for me, the mystery of his face is what I like. The cowled helm with the full Doctor Doom vibes. Yes, I love that.
Yeah, well, honestly, I'm thinking Anakin walking into the Jedi Temple. Spoiler alert from 2003. Like, like it's that guy. Like, oh, this guy is here to kill everyone. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I like, even though he's a good guy, I like seeing the Lion and the Dark Angels as very much a dark, destroying, avenging angel.
Gotcha.
That's the vibe I like for Dark Angels. All right, let's make this gray just a smidgeny lighter. Smidgeny
So I've
lighter
done my
each time.
first highlight on everything.
Yep.
My second highlight, I've started on the chainsaw teeth. I've done it on the backpack vents.
Perfect. Yeah, I've done my first highlight on everything. I'm now just getting that gray where I want it for a second go. As always, cleaning my brush.
Yeah, batch painting is definitely the way. If you've got a lot of stuff to do, it's so much more efficient. It can be very mentally hard wearing though, because you're doing a lot of the same task again and again and again, which can become a little dull and
it is
make you less likely to want to continue. But the Marines that I've just painted for the giveaway at the weekend, like I said, there's 4,100 points done in 4 weekends, and I think we worked it out that there's been something like 50 hours to do all of it. There's 109 models, so that's 25 minutes a mini, and some of the minis are characters that have taken longer. Some of them are tanks and dreadnoughts that have taken longer, and they look solid. They look okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure your standard of okay is fantastic. So
I'm. I told everyone my noble demons look terrible, and I don't like them, and I still got given a painting nomination for them in Germany, which I was very flattered for. But equally, I almost wanted to turn down because I just didn't think they were worth it. My standard for minis that I do for commission and minis for my own army is very different. Minis for my own army are normally I just get these done quick because I can play with them now.
Yep.
My knights are a piece of work that took over 500 hours for 7 models, spread over a couple of years.
Yeah, but still.
But yeah, it took time. My World Eaters are going to be my next, here's what I'm going to try and use to win painting trophies army. Finally have got almost everything I need for the army. Just need to pick up a couple of rhinos, and I'm going to use the Ogroid things from Sigma as my spawn.
Myrmidons. Yeah,
Something
like
like
the
that,
different
yeah.
ogre models from Sigma, which are literally all beautiful.
Yes, they're fantastic. I've got a Fomeroid Crusher, which is like the one-eyed looking thing. Might use that. I've at one point painted up for a giveaway the Myrmidon, and I might use that, but then I just need one other Ogroid thing, and the one from Silver Tower I don't think is particularly appropriate.
Yeah, it's a little too zinchy.
It does look very, very I've cast spells, doesn't it? So.
There's a couple of they're not the Ogroid themes, but I mean, I'm sure that there's some Beastmen models that you could use if needed. But also the whatever it's called. Oh, there's a couple of different Horus Heresy demons in Forge World.
Yes,
and
I've seen
there's those three little
painted
guys.
them blue and red, and they look fucking ace.
Yeah, I've seen some of those, and I've been like, ooh, that's Chaos has a lot of conversion potential, and I'm just not a Chaos player. So I have a lot of chaos ideas rattling around my head that have not been used and aren't looking to be used in the immediate future.
No, I got put onto those by one of my mods that said, "Listen, why don't you do these? These are beautiful," and they really are. But the main theme of everything in the army is it doesn't need to look like a demon, or it doesn't need to look like a space marine. It needs to look like a world eater.
Yeah.
And I really think that the Ogroids, because of how feral they look,
I think that's a good
I think they
aesthetic.
fit the aesthetic a little bit more. And we're still going to convert them.
Mm-hmm.
The initial project was going to be nothing goes in the army unless it's being converted. And I will admit that's changed ever so slightly to there will not be a single duplicate of a model. And one of the reasons for that is because I hate assembly. I hate miniature assembly with a fiery passion. Really? It's my least favorite aspect of the hobby. To the point where I actively outsource miniature painting and miniature assembly. I have people that build stuff for commissions if it's quite a large thing. But for my own stuff that I intend to try winning awards with, I feel it's disingenuous to do that, and I paint it myself and I assemble it myself, obviously. Mm-hmm. So knowing that I need to convert everything is like a bit of a do I want to start work on this today kind of thing. It's a barrier to me just getting on with it.
Yep.
So we'll do a stock version of, say, 3 8-bound and 3 exalted 8-bound, and then the rest will have to be different from that. What chapter are we painting? We're essentially painting generic blue marines at the moment, but it will be Emperor's Spears?
Emperor's Spears.
Yeah.
Emperor's Spears is what we're going for here, which happens to be an Ultramarine Blue army and an Ultramarine Blue successor chapter. And I'm not really looking to and I might end up freehanding some of the tribal patterns right at the end. At the moment, this is very much a test model because I'm not planning to run an Emperor's Spears army. Honestly, I chose the chapter because it has all of the same colors as my Marine chapter, because my Marine chapter is white and blue. And yeah, there's a little more blue here than white, but they, I'll still have to learn all the same colors. And then also it's because I play my Marines with the Emperor's Spears rules. So I was like, I should paint one of them up.
There you go.
Alrighty.
So I've just done the third highlight. Well, I've done some of the third highlight. You can see on the chainsaw now, we're keeping the highlights right to the very tip. For the fourth highlight, I'll probably only do the top half of them.
Yep. Here we go.
Yeah, for this particular marine, it's literally a case of we're finding things that we can use to teach John the technique. Mm-hmm. The techniques can then be adapted for any kind of painting. Like learning how to glaze opens up pretty much the doors to do anything you want to do with miniature painting.
Yep.
For me, that's the most important technique that anyone can learn, because there's nothing you can do that glazing won't give you a hand with, aside from dry brushing, obviously, before anyone.
Yeah, which is obviously the highest level technique that we're saving for last.
Yeah. To be fair, I do dry brush every single model that I paint. There's nothing I paint that doesn't have some interaction with the dry brushing. And that is because the dry brush gets kept in this cup of water, head down in it, which is the correct place for a dry brush, and frequently gets used to do things like clean the airbrush, mix paints in the airbrush cup and stuff. So every model interacts with a dry brush in what I feel is the intended method from GW.
Well, funny enough, I store my dry brush the same way because I find that really helps me get every possible side of the model by having the bristles go in multiple directions to save me a little time.
Yeah, that I can see that working.
That's how I like to. Snivar, the white-blue split is what I use for my Marines. That is the Eagle Warriors, which is an extremely obscure chapter that I picked because no one knows who they are. And I really hate, I don't mind Marine mirror matches. I hate paint scheme mirror matches.
Yes.
So I never want to be like, oh, we're both playing Blood Angels. That's just a mirror match that could happen. And all of our models are red with a bit of gold and white detailing. Cool. I just really tried to pick a Space Marine chapter that I thought I could go another 15 years without playing someone with the exact same color scheme. Because no one does halved Marine chapters because those take freaking forever. There's a very good
quarter
reason.
panel one for a commission, and that was less fun.
Yeah. How much does that change the cost of the commission?
Actually, in this particular case, not at all, because this was one of the things we gave away on last year's stream anniversary, which is going to be again this time around, is a couple of different commission slots, and one of them was for a character size model, and one was for a void dragon because we were doing Necrons.
Fair.
And the guy that won the character commission said, "Can you paint the character for my army? Here's my color scheme," and it was orange and green quarter panels.
Nice.
And I looked at him, "Oh, you bastard, why did it need to be you that won this?" "Yeah, sure, mate, no worries, we can do this." Oh,
easy, yeah.
And then we did a freehand on the back, which is the most esports freehand I think I've ever done in my life. It was a flame outline with a dragon's head breathing fire, and I'll tell you, I was so happy with how it came out.
Was that the Gravis Captain?
Super happy with it, but damn.
Was that the Gravis Captain?
It was the Gravis Captain. Yes, you've seen it. Yes, he's been used as the thumbnail in a load of your videos.
He's been used as a generic Space Marine thumbnail.
Yeah, there you go.
So I've seen that guy. It's a sweet looking model. Yeah, I wouldn't. Oof, yeah, that would be funny. Got to get the whole commission, the whole army done that way. Now the quartered scheme is awesome, but I went with halved because I thought that would be somewhere in between the different levels of
slightly less work. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I want to do this because it also was a really good way for me to get my brush control down because I just had to redo each model until it was a straight line because it looks terrible if it's not a straight line.
Yes. Yeah, you've really got to nail that.
Yeah. And I don't tape any of my models, so it's just been doing it over and over again by hand until it was a straight line. And
Interesting.
That helped me get my brush control where I really wanted it to be.
So I airbrushed it. I airbrushed everything. I think what did I choose to do? I think I did the green first, knowing that if I put orange over the green, it's easier to fix the green than green over orange. And then I literally taped a line down the middle of it. Airbrush to the left of it for one part and the right of it for the other part.
Yeah.
And then tidied up the join. Basically.
Oh yeah, on a Marine, I agree. I'm talking about on like an Impulsor.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, because the whole army I've done that way.
But that's commitment though, dude. If you're not taping it and doing all of that, that's
no. I did it with an airbrush, no tape, and
it's definitely hard. Mate.
And then I just did a little bit. I cleaned it up with a brush to get it all straight. How much time has gone into painting this model? Not a unit. This is just one guy. I don't know. We've done this quite a fair few times now. So
I think it's just our 6th stream.
Yeah. So we've put a lot of hours into this one guy, but a lot of it's been the learning, the instruction, enjoying Jay's company. All right. Let's see here.
Said that last part through gritted teeth, I'm sure.
I can't get enough
your
of it.
Thoughts on faster techniques like slap chop and dry brush.
I don't even know what slap chop means.
Okay, so let me describe slap chop to you. There was a technique that was created many years ago of doing something called creating a value layer. So what a value layer is on a miniature, you can paint it all in grayscales. Okay, so you have a black to white. That's it. The darkest bits are the bits with most shadow, the lightest bits are the bits with most highlight, and then you use translucent paint over the top of that to very quickly color your miniature in. Okay, so you've done like a black and white drawing or painting, and then you put the colors over the top. This is not a new thing. This is a thing in the art world for a very, very long time. And you could do that value layer in a variety of different ways. The most popular way these days is with an airbrush, or with the slap chop thing, where you basically dry brush gray and light gray over a mini. An old school way to do it, which is actually quite a lot of fun, and I think teaches people a lot about light and shadow, is just take some white paint or white ink, thin it down, and then just start painting the highlights, painting the shadows. And because you don't have to worry about it being the finished effect, it's quite freeing. You're just sort of sketching on the model. This bit's light, this bit's more light, this bit's less light, so we'll do less, this bit's more light, and so on and so forth. And you do that for about 10 to 20 minutes. There's a guy who's a phenomenal painter. I'm a huge fan of his work. Marco Frizzoni has a YouTube channel called Not Just Mecha. And if you look at a video that he did of, I think it was a bust or a larger scale mini, that was probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago, he did that. And I'm just painting in white all over for about 20 minutes. Here's what the model would look like if it was like a black and white painting. And then we just put color over the top, done, sorted. Slapchop's a way of doing that by using a dry brush method to get your value layer down.
Oh,
you can use an airbrush.
That's what I like.
The thing I like about it, it's not a technique for me. It's just not how I like to paint, because it does leave a texture, dry brushing, which I try and eliminate. I like my models to be nice and smooth. Like here's a finished mini of mine that's done to a reasonable standard, like not quite character level standard, but you know.
Yeah, it's still drop dead beautiful, but continue.
Everything's smooth. You know, there's no grainy bits of finish that you get from a dry brush. This is how I prefer to paint. So the benefit of Slapchop is it takes using a airbrush to give you that value layer, or plenty of time artfully like blocking in your light and shadows with ink. Takes that and turns it into something that anyone can do, that you require no special training or advanced knowledge or anything. You can just bash with a dry brush. And so making that accessible is brilliant. I love the fact that it's accessible, because it means that people paint armies more. I get to play against much prettier armies on the tabletop. I am very much in favor of this. This is great. My thoughts on dry brushing in general, though, are that if you are someone that just wants to get your mini painted and put on the table, and you don't care about the quality of your mini, and you're not interested in learning how to paint, you're just interested in those 10 points, dry brushing's fine. If, however, you're someone that does care about the finished product, dry brushing is something that we should teach for someone's first time they use a paintbrush, first time they paint a model. We should teach them how to dry brush, because what they're learning isn't how to dry brush a model. What they're learning is what a volumetric highlight is, what a recess shade is, and what a value difference is on a model. So you might say, right, I want you to dry brush, and we'll do like a dark blue everywhere, and then we'll use a lighter blue, and we'll do this bit down here and these bits here. We'll use a really light blue, and we'll do the shoulders and like the hands and so on. And what someone's actually learned isn't what a dry brush is, because that takes seconds to learn, but it's the difference between light and shadow on a model. And so dry brushing for me should be a lesson taught where you just go through all of that for an hour, get to go away and do 5 minis at home. They dry brush it, they come back in the next week for a lesson, and say, right, I want you to start thinking about the model. I want you to see the areas of brighter bits, the darker bits, and so on. And now we're going to do all of this in a really good way without a dry brush. And if you care about the finished product, I think it's a very quick first lesson to teach something that isn't abstract concept like volumetric highlighting in a very fast way, to get someone like most of the information in their head that you can then refine later on.
Yeah. Well, I basically did that. Just I spent 13 years. Yeah.
Most of us did. Like I learned how to dry brush when I was like whenever Gorka Walker came out. So I want to say I was maybe 14 or 15. And I basically didn't paint anything that wasn't with a dry brush for the next 6 years. And I wish I'd taken that time and put that towards better methods of painting, better techniques to use than dry brushing, because I'd be a so much better painter now with that extra 6 years worth of information and knowledge and training and so on. Anyway, dude, how's your NMM going? You should have a nice bright gray at the moment.
Yep, got a nice bright gray. I think I've done 3 layers on everything, and
Cool.
I've started working on the 4th layer on some of it.
Okay, let me know you finish the 4th layer then, and we'll move on to doing a little bit of some tinting, a filter
Okay.
some glazing with the blue, maybe even some glazing with the black if we feel we need to adjust bits here and there. And then we'll put those final highlights on, and that's the small areas of the model done. And we can start working on the more intricate things around the bolt gun, the chainsaw engine.
Excellent. Yeah, right now I'm just getting about the top half of the teeth.
Cool.
There we go.
And that right there, that's an important thing as well. When you're highlighting, sometimes it's better to not do all of it. So on my third highlight pass, I finished just about down here, left the last two. And on the fourth one, I finished about here and left all of these. So all of the teeth get progressively brighter, and all of these little tiny dots that are the links in the chain, I guess, get progressively brighter as you come to the top of this. Daddy Tubbs, good afternoon. How you doing?
Hello, everyone. Hello. All right. I'm going to have to refresh my gray after this anyways. Oops.
Yeah, no worries, dude.
All right. I think I just need to get the barrel of this gun, and then I'm good after this part. Yep, really nice light gray on the back of this backpack. Like the way it's coming together. It is weird how it's like, because the way that it works is that it tricks the eye, and so like for half of it, it's like, this isn't tricking me at all, and then suddenly you're like, hey, silver.
Yeah, we're not quite there. That's why we need the blue to just turn it into more of that metallic and give us more chromatic depth. So that's just basically more color on the model. But a lot of these techniques that we've done, the non-metallic metal, the wet blending especially, both of those get you so far through the process going, well, he said it would turn gold, or he said it would turn this nice blue, and it hasn't yet. I don't really know what's going on, but we're going to trust the process. And then suddenly go, oh, holy shit.
Yep.
It's gold. Wow, I did gold.
Yeah, it was scary, like blending my like one of my castmates, because their armor is green, and so I just sat there for like 3 minutes, like looking at the purple on my palette, like, am I gonna end up repainting this entire night? And no, I was not. Just the purple actually worked.
And they're looking good, dude, as well.
Oh. All right, so that is that's me done with that shade of gray.
Awesome. Let's get a blue glaze going on then.
Perfect.
So just need a little blue on the palette, because we're going to turn it into a glaze, and therefore it'll go a very long way. And just to recap for anyone that hasn't seen the streams, the blue, when we turn it into a glaze, we're just going to use water. You can buy glaze mediums and things like that make your life perhaps a little bit easier. It's something I've never really found I needed to use. That's a good blue. That'll do. Yeah. But if you just use water, you'll get a very smooth, thin coat of paint. And as long as you don't overload your brush, you'll have no issues with it. If you use mediums, you end up with a thicker solution. So the viscosity of this is thicker. And that can make it easier to handle. But honestly, I think you should just use water and get used to this and train with this till you get to the point where it's working fine. Now, with a glaze, what you're looking for is a consistency of paint that when you apply it to a surface and it dries, is still translucent. You can see through it, but it's had an effect. And for me, the ideal thickness of a glaze is that you'd need to do somewhere between 10 and 15 coats of paint before something becomes perfectly opaque. So if we just do a second pass here, that will dry nice and quick, because it's on my thumbnail, obviously. And we keep doing like passes of the blue, and eventually what we'll end up with is something that becomes mostly opaque in a certain area and a lot less opaque back here. So it starts back here with the blue and then starts to become much more noticeable here.
Perfect.
That's a glaze.
All right.
Steve, I'm glad you're enjoying it, dude.
Yeah. Glad everyone is enjoying it. And again, if you want to get a little more Jay in your life, and who doesn't, make sure you check out his YouTube and Twitch channels, Mohawk Miniatures. Oh, come on. I always want a little more Jay in my life.
Mate, I'll give you a little bit more Jay anytime.
There we go. All right. So I've got my blue glaze ready.
Excellent. So rule number 1 of glazing is
Oh, put me on the spot. To go from the area of least impact to most impact.
excellent. So always paint into the shadow if you're trying to make something darker, or into the highlight if you're trying to make something lighter. Because whenever you take your brush off a model, let me just overload the brush and I'll show you. You do a brush stroke, you lift your brush off, and you get this extra bit of paint that lands in that area. If you're trying to do a transition that's smooth, like a gradient, that's the last thing you want. So always paint into the area of most impact you want that paint to have. The second rule of glazing is not, we don't talk about glazing, but is not to overload your brush. If you do, it's more likely to have that. So I'm going to paint down on these surfaces into the recess here. I'm just going to apply a very thin coat of the blue. And what we're looking to do is just to tint the surfaces to a little bit more of that kind of steel blue look.
Very nice.
Going to go this way. So we're going to go from the light here up into the darker part next to the backpack.
Gotcha.
So, and if you always work from a point of least impact to most impact, you'll have a lot less issues with your glaze and your transition having that sort of stutter or coffee stained effect. I'm also going to glaze in on top of our shadows as well, and I'll turn our shadows into a really, really dark blue after a couple of layers, rather than just a dead ass black. Oh, sorry, that's the door. Be right back.
Oh, no problem. I will continue with this right here. And for anyone else who is watching this and wants a little more, just a little more of me, maybe a little more Art of War, I'd encourage you to like and subscribe. Oh, jeez, like, share, subscribe, do all the fun buzzwords. All the comments and everything that you do for the algorithm really does help us grow the channel. We have a lot of 10th edition content running right now, and we're getting ready for even more, because hopefully soon we'll actually have 10th edition. And whenever we do, and whenever GW graces us with 10th edition, we're going to be very excited to get that that on the internet. But these little videos that we keep doing every day because GW keeps putting out articles, those are it's making us hungry for more. We're all very excited for a little bit more 10th edition.
Ooh.
Ooh.
So I've just had some more goodies sent for the community mystery box.
Oh.
So at the weekend, when we do all the giveaways, one of the giveaways, in fact, two of the giveaways, because we've had to split it into two, is things that the community have sent in to give to somebody else in the community.
Oh, very cool.
So one of the prizes in one of the boxes is this. I don't know if you can make that out.
Is that the Chainbreaker Lance?
It is indeed the Chainbreaker Lance. That's one of the things in one of the boxes. We've just had something that will go in. Could be the same box, could be a different box, but this is a bit exciting. This is going to be a world first reveal.
Ooh.
Art of War exclusive.
Oh, there you go. Blackstone
Considering
Fortress.
we were talking about that earlier on, I figured.
That is pretty fun.
Yeah.
You know, I'm something of a community member myself.
God, that's heavy.
Oh, the Blackstone Fortress box?
Yeah, shipping that's going to be a bitch, isn't it?
Yeah. All true. Are you sending it out as is, or are you going to be painting it up first?
No, sending it out as is.
Very nice. Well, those are hard to get.
To paint everything I give away. Like, there's not a chance.
Yep. And nice thing.
I was really gutted when I did it as a commission. My client rather cleverly, I will add, sent me all of the models, but not the tiles and not the rulebook. So I've never actually played it, despite having painted the entire thing.
Oh man, you know I have played a fair amount of Blackstone Fortress. Actually, and I own almost all the expansions, but I've actually never played it. I've only played it in person like once, because I started a thing with my friends right in about February of 2020.
Right.
is when me and a group instead of doing like a D&D group, we did like a Blackstone Fortress group, and
Nice.
to our great
You play
regret,
D&D?
what's that?
You play D&D?
Stunningly, I have never played Dungeons and Dragons,
Oh, okay.
which no opposition at all. Just the way that where I have been in different points of my life, I have just never played, and I'd like to. I've actually I've been talking to a friend about getting a league going. The biggest problem is that like if I do it with all of my 40K friends, then there's going to be literal weeks where we're like, oh, we're all going to LVO, let's kill the league for a month. We're
Yeah.
all going to WTC, let's kill the league for a month.
Yeah.
10th edition's about to drop, let's kill the league for a month. Like that'll just keep happening. Because if we're all gathering together, it'll be us doing that instead of Dungeons and Dragons. And then if I do it with my non 40K friends, it's going to be like, oh, I can't do Thursdays because I might be going to an event. Ooh, I can't do Wednesdays because I might be stream recording a game. I have one evening a week that I is like dedicated. I don't do 40K this evening, and that's for the lady.
Yes.
So
yeah, I have to say.
So I can't do the scheduling part of it is actually the killer.
Yeah, that properly like disbands groups as well when you
exactly.
I'm play on a regular basis.
Yeah, I'm nerdy enough to be well aware of like all of the culture around D&D, and I know that that's what kills D&D groups. So I don't want to join a group where I'm like, I will kill this in the next month.
Good for you, dude.
But I do want
great fun if you ever get the chance to play.
It looks like great fun. I went and saw the movie last week, and that was also very very fun.
I watched that with my missus.
Yep, same thing.
Very fun. Lots of little in jokes, but for me, the best thing about the film is that aside from the lines that the actors give that are clearly like the script, there's loads of little bits that sound exactly like a party of people playing Dungeons and Dragons, like the normal reactions that they have and it's like comedic one-liners and stuff. Just brilliant. Very well done. Very, very well done.
Yeah, everything. I went to see it because I heard that it was very, very much looked like it had been written by people who played the game.
Yeah. Well, Michelle Rodriguez, she plays D&D. Quite famously, in fact. Vin Diesel, who obviously she's done a lot of work with, has even written bits of D&D books. He wrote the foreword for like 3.5 D&D or something.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I know. I didn't know he could write either, but
yeah, I am. Yeah.
So once the blue is done, you're happy with the level of blue, and take your time because obviously this is a big like change for the weapon and so on. Once you're done with that, then we can come back in and tidy up a little bit of it if we feel we need to, with either some more shadow or some greater highlights. Now I'm thinking on mine, the shadows are about where I want them on the backpack piece, but I could do it a little bit more on the chainsaw. So I'm going to take a little bit of black. I'm going to thin that right down to a glaze as well. I'm going to add that in as a recessed shade on my chainsaw.
Funny enough, I'm in the literal opposite. I think my backpack needs a little more shade, and my chain teeth I'm fine with.
Oh, okay.
So I will be I'll be doing that at the same time, but I'm gonna get one more glaze over these teeth. Get a little more blue on them. There we go. All right, so just doing a very light black glaze.
Yeah, just to help balance the shadows out a little bit. Like I feel that here it's not quite as distinct as I want it to be, the delineation between the two. So just a really, really thin pass of black helps to essentially outline everything. And just put that little pass in that brings out the detail a little bit more.
Yep.
For these, I think I'm okay.
There we go. Yep, I'm pretty happy with how that looks. Yeah, that very light blue is real interesting on the on the grays here.
It just changes it from flat gray to light gray to something that just has that slightly more metallic tinge to it. I appreciate this is very blue, but as soon as we put that second highlight down, it will take away a lot of that, and it'll just sit there nicely in the shadow.
It'll all come together. All right, there we go. Oop. Man, hardest part again is always keeping my hands in the place where the camera is. I always want to like hold my model like this, and like paint it like that, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I have to do it like this,
Welcome to my world, dude.
That's how I'm gonna be painting the line, after I eat lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Just fully sitting like a goblin in my chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, next weekend I've got to paint the Thunderhawk.
Ooh.
This weekend, and I think the only way I can keep most of that in shot is if I zoom the camera out to its fullest degree. It's currently in 5 sub-assemblies, and the smallest one is the cannon, which is about that long, and about the width of my thumb, and the largest one is the front section of it, which I think is probably about 10 inches long and about 4 inches wide. I have no idea how I'm going to make it through the weekend holding that.
You just need your trusty.
Stick it to a shot glass,
Yeah, just need your trusty Citadel handle.
Yes, I don't think they make a Thunderhawk-sized version of that, but we'll see.
They do. It's the gun.
Could be interesting. Oh, right. Okay. No, I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, stunning. Okay, there we go. All right.
Right, final highlight.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing you need to know about this is that, just like before, this is about maximizing the contrast. So some of this needs to go right next to the dark areas. Some of it is just there to highlight the light areas. So don't be afraid of doing dark next to light. When you look at metallic stuff, like real metal, you get that a lot. So that's okay to do. Keep it nice and small. So thin your paint down, get nice and thin. And you're doing very, very, very short lines or dots with this.
Gotcha. I can do that. Just gotta clean my brush, and then we're good. The utter silence is both of us holding our breath while we do the small parts, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Last night I was painting text on banners.
Oh,
so right,
God,
sorry guys,
bless
I'm
you.
going to be about 30 seconds of silence. Just held my breath, just got on with it.
Mm-hmm.
We painted death and taxes on the banners on the Indomitus captain and lieutenant, the ones with the shields.
Yeah.
Someone suggested death. I'm like, well, we need something else to go with it. And like, taxes came up. I'm like, yep, that'll do. These are the two certainties.
That's funny. Gulliman would approve. You gotta pay your taxes. All right. There we go. Let's do the teeth of this chainsword.
All right. Concentration power.
Yep. Willpower at the maximum here. Don't breathe. Feel like I'm performing, dentistry right now.
Nothing wrong with a little bit of on-air surgery, John.
Yeah, no pressure. There we go. Okay. Let's refresh the brush. Teeth of the chainsword. Yeah, that was the most nerve-wracking part.
I think the most nerve-wracking part is just doing the inside of these.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's fair.
Because you want to just catch the top edge of that. Remember, that's where light is coming down from above, catching the edge. That's where the glint comes from. So, have fun with that one.
I'm having fun with that one right now.
You'll be fine, mate. You've got it.
I do have this. All right.
So what's your biggest wish list thing for 10th edition then?
I mean, honestly, I I say this as a person who at the moment owns 11 Hive Tyrants. I want a new Hive Tyrant that is
Right.
really big. Like I want him to just be a different size. Like
Knight size.
yeah, it doesn't have to be knight sized, but like I love the Hive Tyrant, but the plastic Hive Tyrant was like a reimagining of the metal one because they just redid the molds to take it from metal to plastic. They didn't actually change the kit at all. So like my metal Hive Tyrant looks the exact same as the plastic Hive Tyrant. You literally can't tell until you pick them up. So
Really?
yeah, because the current plastic Hive Tyrant, the metal Hive Tyrant that came out in 4th edition is the same sculpt.
Wow. Okay, I thought there was a lot more difference than that.
Yeah, there have been multiple metal Hive Tyrants. The one before it is the one with like the head that kind of looks like the current Zoanthrope.
Yeah.
Which is probably what you're thinking of. Yeah, they made a pewter.
I missed a Hive Tyrant in my.
Yeah, well, it's because it looks
history there.
exactly the same. Like I cannot emphasize enough, it is the same thing. So even though we have a kit that came out in like the end of 5th edition, it is the same size as the early 4th edition Tyranid release.
Okay.
And the Hive Tyrant, again, can make direct eye contact with Pharaoh's Ironfather.
Brilliant.
And he's toughness 8. At the moment. I have no idea what it'll be later on. But at the moment, a Hive Tyrant is toughness 8. And I just look at this T8, 13 wound Swarm Lord, shorter than a Demon Prince, smaller than a Primaris on a rock. Like, and I'm just like, all right, I love the model, just the size does not scream, this is my Warlord. Like, this is my guy. And I really want, it doesn't have to be a Hive Tyrant. I really want at least one big, chunky Tyranid. Not a floaty, like I want a big floaty brain bug as well. I want new weird Tyranids. I want a classic big Tyranid monster.
I'd love to see him with a plastic Lord of War. They're one of a few factions that doesn't really have one.
Yeah. And also, like, our Supreme Commander, the Swarmlord, frankly just doesn't hold up to... Because it's weird, like, the centerpiece of a Tyranid army is either get a Forge World model, or it's get, like, a Trigon Moloch. But then, like, when you take those, you take a couple. And those aren't... Like, that's just, like, taking a tank. You know, it's not a centerpiece.
Yeah, exactly. Give the Hive Tyrant a rock. Exactly. We need that. We need the
tactical rock
for a Hive Tyrant, clearly.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, I just need a nice tactical rock for my Hive Tyrant to stand on. I don't know. I want a really good Tyranid centerpiece model.
I think that's a good one. I'd be down for that as well because I love painting Tyranids. I've had 2 Tyranid armies in my time. Once when they first got plastic kits. When that plastic Carnifex came out and you could buy the combat patrol, it was Carnifex, gaunts. I think it was 16 gaunts of some description. It might have been 8 and 8. 8 Termagants, 8 Hormagaunts, 8 Gene Stealers, and 3 Tyranid Warriors. I think that was the box.
I do remember that box set.
I bought 2 of those and made it into a 1,000-point Tyranid army because I turned one of the warriors into a lictor. And I somehow converted a Patriarch. I don't remember how now.
Probably a warrior and some Gene Stealers.
I think it might have been, yeah. But yeah, I remember those 2 boxes, bang, 1,000 points straight away. And Omnis Fire Sphinx with a super chat. Cheers, dude.
Cheers. Thank you, Omnis Fire Sphinx.
How do you feel about the return of the Primarchs to the table? Do you think it takes away from the lore of how powerful they are in the lore? Ooh.
I'll go first here.
Good question.
I personally don't mind at all. Yeah, it is a little bit like break the narrative that at some point Guilliman and Angron will be killed by a lasgun. Right?
Yes.
Because at some point someone's going to shoot Angron with a bunch of Russ and he's going to have 1 wound left and they're just going to be like, well, I'm born soldiers. Let's see what happens. And Angron will fail a save. And it's like, all right, well, there we go. So that, it does take away a little bit, but honestly, not much. Like I like that. And the main thing is that because they're being introduced to the game, more lore is being written about them. And I'm more excited. Genuinely, I'm more excited about the return of Primarchs to the lore because I like that the 40k story is moving at any pace, even if it's a little slow. Compared to, the first 4 editions I played, there wasn't movement. Period.
Yeah. The story was very static. That was it. That's the point you're at.
Done.
Done.
Yeah, you're at, you're at 11:59. The clock's about to hit midnight. That's where you're at. I like that the lore changes as well with the Return of the Primarchs, because I like that change from 8th edition, which kind of coincides with like end of 7th when they started bringing back Magnus and such, was the first time that the lore was really moving. And so that has coincided in my mind is good. And of course, I'm still like just fervently wishing for the day when Khan returns.
Okay.
Because he is very not
on
dead.
His great big bike.
He could ride a bike. Honestly, I wouldn't even be mad if he was on foot. Ideally, they would give him the option.
Okay.
Ideally, they would give him the option.
Khan doesn't have. Was it Moondraken, the bike?
I mean Jagged Icon, not Corsaro Khan. Corsaro Khan rides Moondraken. I do want to get a plastic Captain Khan on bike.
Did Jagged Eye not have a bike?
Jagged Eye didn't really have a notable bike. Like, he had a jet bike, of course. And in 30k, you can play him on foot or on a jet bike.
Okay.
But they never made a model for that.
No, I think if they did it, it'd have to have the bike. Otherwise, the tiers of White Scars players would be almost as juicy as the tiers of Deathwing players now Lost Transhuman.
Those are pretty juicy. Those are pretty great, yeah. Funny enough, I'm a White Scar player who doesn't care that much about bikes, because bikes have just been garbage ever since I started playing 40k 15 years ago.
Yes,
I think there was a moment where like a bike command squad was good, and that's about as far as we've gotten.
7th edition. That was my killer Death Star unit.
Yeah,
Smash Captain on bike.
You and everyone else
on bikes. Yeah, they were great.
I think that was when you used. That was like the only time genuinely that I've been like, oh yeah, you need to have bikes. 7th edition.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
Like for me, I think the Primarchs coming back is fine. You have all these awesomely powerful characters in the lore. We just talked about Tyranids. The Swarm Lord is the hive minders pushed the oh shit button.
Yeah.
We need to deploy a Swarm Lord. This is how bad the battle is going for us, and the Swarm Lord will sort it out.
I love that.
Like in the story, he is absolutely the beast of all beasts. My only part of that is, well, if you have that in the story and he just gets murdered by someone like Marnius Calgar in the books, you're like, well, okay, that you have like the guy that's the commander-in-chief of Ultramar and all that, he's great and he's a big powerful man and everything, but then you have the Swarm Lord that we've been oversold as. It's like Rocky versus Ivan Drago, but instead of Rocky being Rocky, Rocky's like a 9 stone. You work in pounds, don't you? Like 140 pounds soaking wet weed versus Drago, and yet still manages to win. So
yeah, honestly, Calgar beating the Swarm Lord actually doesn't bother me too much, because they fought like 3 times, and the Swarm Lord's still up 2-1, even if he lost the.
Fair. Okay.
But Dante got him on the first try, and I don't like that.
Yeah, I think Dante should have died crossing the Rubicon Primaris.
Should have.
I really do. I'm sorry for any Blood Angels players out there, but Dante should have bit the bullet. Like, they keep telling you how crossing the Rubicon is really dangerous, but every single named character that's given it a go has managed it. It's crazy.
Yeah, they should get rid of one of the old Dark Angel. Like, what's the Dark Angel chaplain?
Ezekiel?
No, he's the librarian. Dark Angel Asmodai.
Asmodai.
Honestly, Asmodai should die crossing the Rubicon. He's old. He's older than me.
Yeah, but no one gives.
Exactly. Just offer a named character.
It's like in Game of Thrones. Like, Ned Stark died at the start. You're like, oh damn. Okay. Oh. No one's safe. If it was a bit part character, Asmodai,
that's true.
No one cares. Had to happen to somebody, right? Good job it was him.
Yeah, well, there's
no.
I would say there's no way GW would do that, but then we have Yarrick, so I don't really know.
Yes, and Creed. Creed is gone as well.
Yeah, Creed I'm 100% okay with, because they explained what happened to Creed. Yarrick, I don't like how open-ended it is.
So
I wouldn't mind if Yarick died, to be clear. I like Guard, I love Guard, I love Yarick. Yarick is my Lord of Solar. I wouldn't be mad if they gave us a book where Yarick died.
the fact you haven't had a story about it, I think is a bit galling. But
That's...
I'm waiting for there to be
I'm sure there will be one.
some orc character stood over the body of a commissar with a power claw. You know, Angron's got the head. It's basically his vajazzle. The body's got to exist somewhere.
Don't like it. Don't like it one bit. All right.
Sean Bean, of course, he dies. That is very true. Yes, he's very good at dying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, how's those heights gone? I've noticed you've gone like way ahead and you started doing like all the other bits of Space Marine, whereas I've left all that grey and we've just focused on the those two areas. But how have you found it?
Yeah. I have been doing it on the gun as well. I found it pretty good. So I think for whatever reason, I think the non-metallic gold came a little bit easier to me than the non-metallic silver.
Mm-hmm.
So this is probably one that I'll be trying again, but I do like how it looks. I like it. The chainsword teeth especially, I really like.
Good.
And the backpack looks pretty decent, but not quite as pronounced, I think, as the chainsword teeth.
I think silver is harder to do than gold.
Yeah.
Because gold, as long as it's sort of rich and yellow, ta-da, you have gold. Well done. And with the gold, because we're using various different colors to help us get that, we've managed to do something that is reasonably straightforward to also create a very strong finish with, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with the silver, everything is effectively grayscale until that one point where suddenly it isn't anymore. And at that stage, as long as you've done everything right up to there, which you'll only know you've done right at the very last point, then everything will be fine. But if you haven't nailed it throughout, it's a little more tricky.
Yeah, it's definitely tricky, but I think it looks pretty good. So I'm pretty happy. I'll probably try it again. I mean, frankly, I'm going to be trying almost all these techniques again at different points. Yeah, but the silver's still looking pretty good. I really like the chainsword.
Good.
Yeah, that's something that I want to do again. Very good stuff. All right, well, I think we're let's see. Was that the final highlight of the silver?
It was. That's it. So as far as I'm concerned, I am done on the backpack. For me, that's got a nice look to the metal. These little highlights on the inside of the bit that really makes it.
Yeah.
Because then you've got that massive contrast between light and dark, and it then starts to have that feeling of actually looking metallic. But you can't do those until the last highlight, because otherwise you go too far with the rest of shading, and I think it just takes away from it. But that is non-metallic silver in a quick nutshell go, essentially.
Yep.
I'm just getting to somewhere near where you are with the rest of it by locking that in on everything else now.
Yep, and that's me holding this guy up so you can check out the vents on the backpack.
I think they're looking good, dude.
And then got that chainsword. The engine block on the chainsword is one of the things that I don't think I did that's like one that I want to either redo or relook at.
Okay, well, we'll look at that again next week then, just to make sure that's been into a point where you're satisfied with it. And then I reckon we'll go into... Let's try and finish the rest of the dude before we go on to things like the face and so on.
Okay.
So on yours, I know there's some pouches to do, so we can look at pouches.
Yep. There's pouches, there's scrolls, and then there's the helmet on his belt.
Cool beans. And the helmet we've got to paint white, right?
Exactly.
Oh, you're going to love that one.
Oh, I'm sure I will.
Painting white, I promise you, is actually a lot easier than people think.
Ooh, that's exciting to hear.
It just takes time, that's all.
Time I'm willing to do.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jay, as always, for joining and helping me out here. Thank you,
My
chat,
pleasure,
for keeping us company. If you enjoy this, make sure that you like this video, share, subscribe. Of course, become a member, and you can even check out the link below in the description where you can get a free 3-day trial to the Worm. As well, make sure you check out Jay on his YouTube and Twitch channel, Mohawk Miniatures. We'll be back next week, and we'll be live with a lot more content throughout the week, so make sure you stay tuned. Whatever GW is posting about 10th edition, we'll be posting some videos of our own in addition to our normal content. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. We'll catch you next time. Bye
Peace
bye.
out.